Well, I guess first of all, you have to get people to listen to it. So you have to really produce a great show.
Yeah.
And then you have to probably go to where those people are that you want to get to listen to your show, like groups on Facebook, groups on LinkedIn, is that what are you making faces at me or what do you?
No, I'm reading comments. I've got like a million and one monitors here. No, but I can make faces at you too. This is so much fun.
Yeah, but I think that's the way to start marketing is start getting it out there. It's just like, follow KiKi on everything she does. I mean, you're out there everywhere, it's like, that's what you want to be. You want to start grabbing that audience. You got to get out there and start marketing for them. I think that's kind of the things that I've done in the past. I mean, I have a new podcast meetup, which I've kind of done, but now I'm combining it with the Oakland Library to making it an adult learning thing. And it's been interesting to go to try and to publicize it. And so actually what I'm finding really good, and I'm just measuring on how many people are coming, but getting the people that are popular in that niche to actually send stuff out, to send, they do the marketing for me, if that makes sense, so the speakers, whoever, I mean, that's, so for you and Beth, whatever your podcast is about, you need to go find those people and then find those real big fans and then have them help you, obviously word of mouth is for everything, for business, for everything.
Yeah. Beth, I'm so excited that you jumped on. That was a lot of fun. Usually people are too afraid to jump on video really fast for me. So that was pretty cool, but she's a pro. So, what else can you expect?
I know. Bring her back? I could go away.
No.
You guys are better to look at than
she
me.
said she has a good hair day today, so that's good. Eric says
how much hair I don't have.
Eric says associations are where we meet people face to face. Podcasts are the place where millennials do the same kind of connections. Doesn't think that live, real face to face events go away, but podcasts and video podcasts are good additions. Then he says, this is about Sam's question about B2C, B2B. B2C is very different compared to B2B in association to members. Consumers usually need to be in much larger groups for outreach to be profitable. However, associations create such niche audiences that the right sponsors will find it more profitable even with small numbers. And I really do believe it's true because when you have that perfect audience, do you care that you have 100,000 people following you if they're not going to convert, if they're not going to buy or do something that is getting you closer to what your goal is? If you actually have 5 really dedicated people who are on all the time and they're the ones that convert, that actually means a lot more. And I tell you what, a really great example of this, whenever you talk about like influencer marketing or anything like that, that's why you can have like a Kim Kardashian or you can, have a Dave Grohl or something like that, talk about your film, talk about whatever. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're selling any more than you would otherwise. You have to have reach, but you also have to have relevance and resonance. And so,
yeah, I have a good example of this too. I saw at Podcast Movement, saw this guy speak, and he has a horse podcast. He talks all about horses. He has about 10, 15 podcasts about horses. And his smallest podcast audience is about buggies, like this buggies. But anytime he advertises anything to those buggy people, they buy everything. It's his most profitable podcast out of all of them because they're just crazy for buggies, the buggies and the horse. So he was saying like he has these other ones that have these huge audiences, but they don't buy anywhere near the niche. So
yeah, that's so crazy. So it's like, I think that if you, instead of trying to catering to everybody, even if how about this? Even if your product is something that could potentially that like everyone would be able to enjoy or become a part of, probably dialing in on, some sort of target or niche market is probably your best bet to begin with, and then growing from there, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And I was just thinking, I just popped into my head about Beth too, was that, the Edison research stuff. Mm-hmm. Have you seen that stuff?
No.
No. Okay. So
No.
That's great. That's great. No, that's what I mean.
There's
a company called, a friend of mine, Tom Webster is the whatever he is there. He's the VP of something, but it's called Edison Research. And I'll get you the link to it, but they have all this information about the studies they've done since 2006. I think they've been doing a yearly study on podcasting. So if you want to have stuff to, if you want to sell your podcast, it's a great place to go get information.
Ooh.
They have all these, slides and stuff in there you can grab, and they just want credit for it. They just want you to put Edison in there. But man, there's just so much information to sell your podcast.
Oh, Jed, you're on. Oh my gosh. Oh, I haven't seen you for so long. Yay. Hey, Jed.
There he goes. Look,
yes.
He has the study right there.
Yeah, he does. Oh my gosh. That's so awesome. I remember Jed back from the Blab days. So Eric says, I'm thinking about doing a podcast for the event prof space, knowing that I can't cater to the entire space, small as it is at once. It seems like I need it to be more of a variety show, like a late night talk show where one group of folks watch on one day, then maybe not the next time. Interesting.
I think the meetings podcast, when I started doing that, I just started doing it to meet clients. So I was like, I want to work with KiKi. So, hey, do you want to be on my internet radio show? But, I didn't understand what a podcast was. And it worked. I met everybody. But then I kind of shifted away from that. Just started trying to meet people into industry, which I think, Eric, it's a great idea. I think you just interview people and you bring somebody like KiKi on. They heard all this cool stuff on the meetings podcast because KiKi was interviewed, but they think of Mike McAllen. So that's, by association.
Yeah. By association.
You seem smarter than you are. And that's,
well, not if you have me on necessarily, but.
but it's true, because now I go to, when I think about going to all these, like we talked about Julius, like Sam that's on here. All the people I interviewed on the podcast. And that was how I, you meet people, and then people are listening and they're like, oh, it's I think for sure, Eric, you should do it. It's really great.
It is really great. Well, and what I find is that it actually leads to more opportunities to later down the road, because you don't necessarily for me, association chat for sure has led to all kinds of things like interviewing people at conferences. And I mean, it's become something where people ask me to be a moderator for things often. And that is something that I don't know. I was a speaker before, but being a moderator is something that that happens more and more, and it's directly connected to association chat.
And the one thing that I found that I thought was interesting too, as you say that, was I got to go to events as a media person. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, I was a media person, and then I got to meet all these media people. So when I needed to have an article written about something, I could go to all of them and go, "Hey, can you write about it?" Hi.
Yeah. So we are welcoming on Lauren LeMonion. Now, listen, let me tell you guys, Lauren is absolutely phenomenal. And it's actually totally her fault that I am now writing a blog post every day for 100 days. Thank you so much for that.
Sorry, not sorry.
Woo! Okay. So Lauren had a question, and this is why I invite her to jump on and ask it directly. So Lauren, do you want to ask your question?
Sure.
To the world, to Mike?
Absolutely. Why not?
Yes.
So my question is, what do you see as the most lucrative format for sponsors? So the format of the podcast. So a single focus with a speaker talking about a topic, conversation based, or more storytelling. So what do you see as getting the most bang for your buck as a sponsor?
Wow. Great question. For knit stuff, it's all interviews mostly. I can't think of anything else that's not interviews in there. I mean, there's some, because you could then, I think the interview one is the best. I mean, but you look at the storytelling podcast. Do you guys listen to a lot of storytelling podcasts?
The Moth. Love it.
The Moth. You listen to 99% Invisible or Snap Judgment?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Snap Judgment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. Yeah, 99% Invisible, and they're all story stuff.
Yeah,
and then Eric says hardcore history, but I don't know. There's not ads like 6-hour podcasts. I'm not sure how he does ads in that.
I know that they layer it in, so they have, when there's key transition points in the story, that's when they'll tie it in.
Yeah.
That's a great
question.
That's a great question though, because people do love the storytelling ones. And the Moth is that like an NPR one or a?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then there's This American Life and things like that.
Right.
And S-Town.
They have a whole, sales teams for that. So it's interesting. Another good question I can't answer.
The other question is, should we put the 100-day blog challenge into podcast format?
Ooh.
Why not?
Ooh.
Why
Ooh,
not?
please go into that a little deeper. Okay, tell me exactly what this challenge, what you're thinking in your mind.
So the idea behind it would be to take the blogs, use them as a starting point of discussion, and then dive in from there.
Okay. Ooh, it's funny that you say that because since I started doing these blog posts a day and then jumped into the series, it's funny how all of it connects because I'm like, oh yeah. So we're talking about podcasts today. And then I wrote this post and it turns out that people listen to podcasts throughout. Unlike other types of content, they stick with it. So you've got the person in your audience's ear. And they're sticking with you through the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. I'm thinking along the lines, I listen to the Side Hustle School a lot. So these are 6-minute episodes. And I love them because I just binge on them and do about 5 in a sitting.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for jumping on. Yes.
Yeah.
And you know what the cool thing is?
You've got to check out Lauren's blog. She's awesome.
The cool thing too with podcasting is you can test things constantly, try different things. I mean, I know with the Meetings podcast, I tried for about 4 months. I had just curated content and it went through the roof for people listening to it. So I actually just had a team of people doing it, somebody researching, somebody recording it, somebody editing it. I didn't do it anymore. I was just producing it, and it was a daily show for around 4 months, and the listens went through the roof, but it didn't really, I just stopped doing it because it just kind of, I wasn't getting anything from it really. I mean, like we were talking about, it wasn't pushing to anywhere. People weren't going anything with it, but anyway.
Oh man.
But it's an interesting thing to test. And I thought, well, let's try it. So you did get lots of listens, but I just think it's great to try things. So like the 100-day podcast, why not try it? Maybe it'll be something that'll push people to your.
I think that's a good idea. I actually think it's a good idea because what would it hurt? I mean, like with the 100-day blog challenge, I thought, I've always taught, and when I say always, it's been years. I remember when I was in college and I remember writing down goals for like the new year, like what my resolutions. And one was that I would write every day. And I have broken that more than I've broken dieting or exercise or anything like that. I've broken that resolution so many times that I just I didn't know if it'd ever happen again. And I didn't want to do that. And then she just happened to catch me at a time where I am really hardcore into following through with what I say I'm going to do. So I was like, yes, you know what? Yes, I'm signed on to do it. And I've been doing it, and it's hard. It is hard, but it's paying off too. Beth says, the coolest thing I've done is ask everyone the same question for 3 years. And now I have insight into trends and I'm turning it into a book. Oh, I love that. A question that I started down that path and then I abandoned it, and I wish I hadn't, is asking everybody, when I say the word weird, what do you think of? And it was fun. It was a fun question to ask, but I actually have a reason for asking it. Like I do want to tie it into a book later. And so I need to jump on that. I can't wait to read your book. I will be first in line to buy it or order it online.
I did the same thing. I did the podcast. I had the same questions and I was planning on making a book out of it. Did it for 2 years. I never did it though.
Yes.
Same thing. I just had one of those things. Just didn't have time,
Yeah. Richard says, KiKi, what is it? What is it, Richard? I don't know. Yeah, no. And Jed says, cool project, Beth. And then Eric says that he thinks of himself when he thinks of weird. Very nice. Amalia, yeah. And she said, now I've said it publicly, so I have to do it. Amalia says she's jumping on a second. Amalia, just let me know when you are ready to, when you're connected and ready to come on with your question, and I will bring you on. Richard said, you asked weird. And as you keep asking, I now think of you. Good. That's good, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I think it's good. So, we'll go with that. So when people think of, advertising, we're talking a lot about if people are advertising on your own podcast, but what if you want to advertise on someone else's? So for instance, I want to branch out. I want people to know about Association Chat.